So Bee Composed was an installation I designed to raise awareness of the declining population of the bees. I converted a redundant piano into a working beehive, and what I did is I composed using the sounds that the bees were making whilst living inside the body of the piano. I attached contact microphones to the side of the piano and basically recorded those sounds and then worked out what melodies or what sounds the bees were producing in terms of musical term, and then made pieces of music out of it. Over the last couple of years, because obviously I did that in 2014, I've been sort of learning as much as I can about bees. Now I've actually got a really good understanding of a hive, and what I would really like to do now is, and what I've used this week at Aldeburgh Music to do, is to start representing the different activity and different things that happen inside a hive using performance art and dance and music. So creating performance out of scientific happenings that are going on inside a hive, and that's what I've spent the sort of last year researching, but the last week sort of exploring physically. The dance company that I brought in last week was Neon Dance. Adrian's the choreographer and she's based in Berlin, and the rest of the dancers are based in London, but they work as a collective to put on loads of different shows. And then I was also working with Tom Moore. He's a violinist, a sound artist as well himself. I really wanted to find a violinist that was going to be super experimental and willing to kind of work with sounds of nature as well as just playing classical music. What we did to start off with was look at the kind of scientific imagery of different things that about bees, and something I've been exploring a lot is the waggle dance, as bees communicate through dance and music, well, dance and sound, and so it seemed like a really obvious kind of sort of art form collaboration for me to look at the waggle dance, because it's one that's that is probably more well known by the general public, really. Something that happens inside the hive, and the waggle dance imagery that we had printed on the floor was just an experiment, really. What we really wanted to do is have it projected big enough so that the audience could actually follow the path. In a hive there's only one queen, and then what happens is, say a queen gets too old, the other bees or the worker bees recognise that she's getting too old, and they think, okay, right, well, we need to start producing these new queen cells, or we need to start preparing a new queen. And what will happen is she'll recognise that she's being turfed out, so she'll swarm. But to be safe rather than sorry, bees will try and raise more than one queen. And if two queen bees are born at the same time, they instinctively know to kill each other. So it's this really dramatic thing that happens inside a hive where you've got these two queen bees born instinctively knowing to fight to the death. And queen bees can sting as well, so they basically just tackle each other and sting and sting and sting until one of them dies. But for me, it really resonates in terms of performance, in terms of something that's quite theatrical, and you could represent through multiple different performances. And what we did with the Neon Dance here and Tom was almost replicate what the queen bees are doing. I wanted to explore the sounds that bees were making as well, because the queen bees produce a different sound, so it's called piping, where they're born and they call out to the other bees, and then the other queen bee will hatch and she'll know she's under attack immediately. Bees all have different jobs inside the hive, worker bees and drone bees. They all have these different jobs, and one of the jobs is an undertaker. So if a bee dies inside the hive, the undertaker bee will fly it out of the hive. The bouncer bee is generally just a bee that buzzes around the front of the hive or the opening to the hive, and rejecting any bee that looks or smells like it could be unwell. Something that we learnt from this was that it was a bit too dark, that area. So what we did is we experimented with the bee sounds to produce a more club-like scenario, and the choreographers worked on a piece where Yugal was a bouncer, and then we had Karis trying to get into the hive. hive mind is a really fascinating thing, and like a lot of the different things that happen in the hive happen in human society. So I just want to sort of really emphasise on those things so that the public can start empathising with the bees, which again is all part of my ploy for this whole raising awareness, because the more people feel that they empathise with the hive or the bees, the more they're going to, I don't know, start to love them like I do.